guys, it's me again. So tonight I'm going to read you chapters 7 and 8 of Charlotte's Web, and I will tell you ahead of time that these two chapters are pretty short, but they're pretty good. They're powerful. So, chapter 7 is called Bad News. Wilbur liked Charlotte better and better each day. Her campaign against insects seemed sensible and useful. Hardly anybody around the farm had a good word to say for a fly. Flies spent their time pestering others. The cows hated them. The horses detested them. The sheep loathed them. And Mr. and Mrs. Zuckerman were always complaining about them and putting up screens. Now, Wilbur admired the way that Charlotte managed. He was particularly glad that she always put her victim to sleep before eating it. "It's real thoughtful of you to do that, Charlotte," he said. "Yes," she replied in her sweet musical voice. "I always give them an anesthetic so they don't feel the pain. It's a little service I throw in." As the days went by, Wilbur grew and grew, and he ate 3 big meals a day. He spent long hours lying on his side, half asleep, dreaming pleasant dreams. He enjoyed good health, and he gained a lot of weight. And one afternoon, when Fern was sitting on her stool, the oldest sheep walked into the barn and stopped to pay a call on Wilbur. "Hello," she said. "Seems to me you're putting on weight." "Yes, I guess I am," replied Wilbur. "At my age, it's a good idea to keep gaining." "Just the same, I don't envy you," said the old sheep. "You know why they're fattening you up, don't you?" "No," said Wilbur. "Well, I don't like to spread bad news," said the sheep, "but they're fattening you up because they're going to kill you. That's why." "They're going to what?" screamed Wilbur. Fern was rigid on her stool. "Kill you, turn you into smoked bacon and ham," continued the old sheep. "Almost all young pigs get murdered by the farmer as soon as the real cold weather sets in. It's a regular conspiracy around here to kill you at Christmas time. Everybody's in on the plot. Lurvy, Zuckerman, and John Arable." "Mr. Arable?" sobbed Wilbur. "Fern's father?" "Certainly. When a pig is to be butchered, everybody helps. I'm an old sheep, and I see the same thing, same old business, year after year. Arable arrives with his .22, and he shoots the—" "Stop!" screamed Wilbur. "I don't want to die. Save me, somebody, save me." Fern was just about to jump when a voice was heard. "Be quiet, Wilbur," said Charlotte, who was listening to this awful conversation. And there's a picture, and you can see poor Wilbur. He's so upset with what the sheep is telling him. So he's crying. "I can't be quiet," screamed Wilbur, racing up and down. "I don't want to be killed. I don't want to die. Is it true what the old sheep says? Charlotte, is it true that they're going to kill me when the cold weather comes?" "Well," said the spider, "the old sheep has been around this barn a long time. She has seen many a spring pig come and go. If she says they plan to kill you, I'm sure it's true. It's also the dirtiest trick I heard of. What people won't think of." Wilbur burst into tears. "I don't want to die," he said. "I want to stay alive right here in my comfortable manure pile with all my friends. I want to breathe the beautiful air, and I want to lie in the beautiful sun." "You're certainly making a beautiful noise," snapped the old sheep. "I don't want to die," screamed Wilbur, throwing himself to the ground. "You shall not die," said Charlotte. "What? Really?" cried Wilbur. "Who's going to save me?" "I am," said Charlotte. "How?" said Wilbur. "That remains to be seen, but I am going to save you, and I want you to quiet down immediately. You're carrying on in a childish way. Stop your crying." "I can't stand hysterics," said Charlotte. The next chapter, chapter 8, is called A Talk at Home. On Sunday morning, Mr. and Mrs. Arable and Fern were sitting at breakfast in the kitchen. Avery had finished and was upstairs looking for his slingshot. "Did you know that Uncle Homer's goslings had hatched?" asked Fern. How many? Asked Mr. Arable. 7, replied Fern. There were 8 eggs, but 1 egg didn't hatch, and the goose told Templeton that she didn't want it anymore, so he took it away. The goose did what? Asked Mrs. Arable. Told Templeton she didn't want the egg anymore, said Fern. Who's Templeton? Asked Mrs. Arable. He's the rat, said Fern. None of us like him much. Who's us? Asked Mr. Arable. Oh, just everybody in the barn cellar. Wilbur and the sheep and the lambs and the goose and the gander and the goslings and Charlotte and me. Charlotte? Said Mrs. Arable. Who's Charlotte? Oh, she's Wilbur's best friend. She's terribly clever. What does she look like? Asked Mrs. Arable. Well, said Fern, she has 8 legs. All spiders do, I guess. Charlotte is a spider? Asked Fern's mother. Fern nodded. A big gray one. She has a web across the top of Wilbur's doorway. She catches flies and she sucks their blood, and Wilbur adores her. Does he really? Said Mrs. Arable. She was staring at Fern with a worried expression on her face. Oh, yes, Wilbur adores Charlotte, said Fern. Do you know what Charlotte said when the goslings hatched? I don't have the faintest idea, said Mr. Arable. Tell us. Well, when the first gosling stuck his little head out from under the goose, I was sitting on my stool in the corner, and Charlotte was on her web. She made a speech, and she said, I am sure that every one of us here in the barn cellar will be gratified to learn that after 4 weeks of unremitting effort and patience on the part of the goose, she now has something to show for it. Don't you think that was a pleasant thing for her to say? Yes, I do, said Mrs. Arable. And now, Fern, it's time to get ready for Sunday school. And tell Avery to get ready. And this afternoon, you could tell me more about what goes on in Uncle Homer's barn. Aren't you spending a lot of time there? You go there almost every afternoon, don't you? I like it there, said Fern. And she wiped her mouth and ran upstairs. And after she left the room, Mrs. Arable spoke in a low voice to her husband. I worry about Fern, she said. Did you hear the way that she rambled on about the animals, pretending that they talked? Mr. Arable chuckled. Maybe they do talk, he said. I've sometimes wondered. At any rate, don't worry about Fern. She's just got a lively imagination. Kids think they hear all sorts of things. Just the same, I do worry about her, replied Mrs. Arable. I think I shall ask Dr. Dorian about her the next time I see him. He loves Fern almost as much as we do, and I want him to know how queerly she is acting about that pig and everything. I don't think it's normal. You know perfectly well that animals don't talk. Mr. Arable grinned. Maybe our ears aren't as sharp as Fern's, he said. And that's the end of our chapters for tonight. I know they were short, but they sure were interesting. So I can't wait to hear what happens when we get back together again tomorrow night. So, good night.